Hey everyone, this is Robin from Designhill and your host for the day. I hope you and your family are keeping well and safe. I would like to welcome you for this session where we are going to talk about fog calligraphy and developing your lettering style. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists. So, moving ahead, let me introduce our speaker for today. We have with us Catalina. Catalina is a graphic designer and teacher who fell in love with calligraphy over 10 years ago. While she was getting her master's degree in advanced typography, teaching is her life. That's how she started her own business, Il Tentaro, back in 2015. Currently, she works as a professional lettering artist, college professor, and has taught hundreds of calligraphy and lettering workshop to over 5,000 students. Hi, Catalina. Would you like to say a quick hi to our audience?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so nice to be back here at the stage with Designhill. Thank you so much for the invitation. Very excited to teach you everything that we're going to learn today.
Great. So, guys, before we start the session, here is a big announcement. We are giving away certificates to all the attendees, but that for that you have to stick till the very end. So, brace yourself as stay tuned till the very end. All right. So, before we start the session, let's quickly look at what Design Hill is all about.
Need to get your parents off your back? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Design Hill.
When I started my photography business, I needed something that said this was more than just a hobby. It's not a hobby, Mom. That's why I went to Designhill and got an amazing logo super fast at a price I could afford. The process was easy using Designhill's logo maker. Just enter the name of your business, then pick out a number of designs that inspire you. I'll pick this one and that one. That one looks cute. Then pick your colors or let the system decide. Add some more info like a slogan, the industry your business is in, and your budget. The logo maker, using machine learning and artificial intelligence, will design thousands of logo variants that you can choose from and adapt. In fact, I was able to get everything from business cards to t-shirt design and complete social media kit, all with the click of a button. With that, I'm all set. Now everyone I meet knows I'm a legit photographer. Even my mom. It's real. That's decaf.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Design Hill.
Know it's real and build your brand with Design Hill.
All right. So that was all about Design Hill. And now we are all set to start the session. We will take up questions during the session. So, guys, if you have anything to ask to Catalina, please drop them in the questions tab on your screen. So over to you, Catalina. You can start presenting your screen.
Great. Thank you, Robin, for this introduction. Okay, so when you signed up, I assume that you are eager to see what is it that you're going to be able to learn today and how to enhance your lettering techniques. So what I'm going to teach you is 5 different topics that when you mix them, it's like a mix and match game. You're going to be able to obtain over 10 different lettering styles based on the basic faux calligraphy, modern calligraphy style. Okay, so I'm gonna go back and start with some basic concepts for which I prepared these cue cards. And you can take notes. If you have experience in lettering, probably you already know all this, but what I'm gonna ask you to write down in case you're taking notes is that for each topic, in case you do know what I'm talking about, you write down the letter that's on my right, because then we're gonna mix and match the different 5 topics that I'm gonna mention. So first, it's letter height. So we need to remember that all letters, regardless if we're talking about Roman style or script style or Gothic style calligraphy, are gonna use this and respect this height. So first we're gonna have the baseline, and that's our starting point. So on top of our baseline is the X height, and this is gonna be the height of all our lowercase letters. We're gonna have our uppercase letters that go all the way to the ascender height, and the lowercase letters that have information on the top, then they all reach the ascender height, and lowercase letters that have information in the bottom reach the descender height. Now, why is this important? Because this is one of the first things that we're going to be able to modify when we do our lettering style. So as of this moment, in this example, all the lines are equally distant from each other, okay? So I don't know if you use inches or centimeters. I use centimeters. So each of these lines are 2 centimeters apart. Okay, so I'm gonna do an example where I'm gonna move around the X height to see how this is gonna affect my style. Okay, so you can go ahead and draw with me. So if I draw this line, this is gonna be my baseline. This is gonna be my ascender height. And right in the middle, I'm gonna do the X height, okay? I'm gonna use this discontinuous line to be able to identify my X height, okay? Now, if I move this X height, I shouldn't have done it all the way to the end. If I move this, my X height, closer to my baseline or closer to my ascender height, then I'm gonna obtain different results. Let's see. Here, I'm gonna draw a letter H. And here, I'm gonna do exactly the same. And look how it gives me completely different results on how the look and feel of my letter looks. Now, if we apply that to a word, let's say I'm gonna write down hi. I'm already transmitting different types of emotions or intentions of my wording, okay? Now, let's see on a longer word, okay? So again, I'm gonna go ahead and use the same height for so I'm just gonna do it without the ruler, without measuring, just by eye. I'm just gonna calculate where the middle is. So here they're equally the same distance. Here I'm gonna do it closer. And here I'm gonna do it higher. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and write hello. See that I'm using exactly the same lettering construction for the 3 examples, but I'm obtaining different results as I'm only varying the X height. Of course, you can play around with this, obtaining different results, and we'll see further ahead more of this, okay? Oh, okay, so we have one question. What is the difference between faux calligraphy and calligraphy? We're gonna get there pretty soon. So what I'm doing right now is calligraphy. So please know that calligraphy is anything that you can do with a specific tool. So right now my tool is a pencil, and it's giving me a thin stroke, and I can do different types of letters with this pencil. I could have a brush pen. I could have calligraphy nib. I could have even a, 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 a stick of wood, and dipped in ink. Anything that's gonna give me one single stroke, and I'm not gonna vary it in any way, that would be calligraphy. Okay. Now, if I modify that stroke related to the related to the tool that I'm using, I'm gonna get different results. Today, I'm gonna talk about faux calligraphy, which I'm gonna get into detail further ahead, okay? Thank you for your question, Dale. Okay, so moving ahead with our variant number 2. Now, we're gonna talk about letter slant. Now, this has to be, this regards the angle of the strokes that I'm drawing. So I can do very straight strokes that seek like for a 90-degree angle, okay? Or there can be slanted, and it can vary how slanted they are, okay? So I can now go ahead and do exactly the same exercise that I did before. And I'm gonna go ahead and write hello. And I'm gonna vary the slant, okay? So while I'm at this, I would love to hear where you're joining us from. So you can write it in the comments in the chat. Let me know if this is your first lettering class, or if you have any experience, and anything else that you want to share, so that we can keep the conversation going, okay? So on this, I'm gonna go ahead and do it right in the middle. And here, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it a little bit lower, okay? So I'm just gonna do this freehand, okay? Okay, so we have guys from Fiji, Dominican Republic, Barbados. Oh, okay, Uruguay. Oh, okay. Hi, Veronica. Join us from Costa Rica. I'm from Costa Rica, so it's so nice to see that people from my country were able to join today, and people from all over the world. So it's so nice to meet you guys. Indonesia, Philippines, Trinidad. Wow, all over the world. This is amazing. Okay, so now we have different heights, and now I'm gonna vary the slant. So here I'm gonna do it completely perpendicular to my baseline, 90 degrees. Okay, so all my vertical lines should be perpendicular, okay? So you can see that it's a straight axis on all letters, okay? Now, what if I make it, let's say, 30-degree angle, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and draw these guidelines. This is gonna help you. So if you haven't, there's a tendency for beginners to do very straight strokes, okay? And then it's hard for you to follow up on a specific slant. So go ahead and use all the guidelines that you think are necessary, because here it's all valid. Because since we're working with the pencil, and then we eventually color it with ink, then we're going to be able to use all the guidelines to make sure that our design ends up exactly as we intend to, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead, and all my vertical lines are going to try to follow exactly the slant that I defined at the beginning, okay? Now, here I'm modifying two things. One thing is the slant and one thing is the letter height, okay? So remember that I told you to write down the letters that I had on the top top right side of my paper. So now we're talking about A and B. And here we have two modifications. So here would be A plus B. Now, of course, if I decide a different height with the same variation, with the same combination of A plus B, I could have a different result, okay? So I could do, you know, the same slant, but the one that is exactly at the middle. I could use the same slant, but a higher X height. So you see how the loop becomes smaller, okay? So we start seeing variations from our letters and our results only by these two combinations, okay? So is it clear so far? Any more questions? Okay, so variation number 3 would be letter spacing. Okay, so for this, I need to go back and remind you on how is it that you join letters when you're doing script calligraphy. Okay, so when you, and for this, we need to be clear on our letter height. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do my guidelines again. I can't get it off of these guidelines. It's super useful at the beginning. Don't try to draw anything free-handed if you're just beginning, okay? I know sometimes it's a bum to doing all these guidelines, but please go ahead and do them. This is gonna give you control of your strokes. Know what you're doing consciously, okay? And it's not just out of instinct, but you're gonna be able to see what you're doing and afterwards be able to correct it and get better at one specific subject with complete control of your lettering, okay? So now we have our baseline, we have our X height, and we have our ascender height, okay? So we join all letters when we do script calligraphy with the curved line that goes from our baseline to our X height. Now, we don't do it a straight diagonal line, but it goes a little bit curved like this, okay? So all letters join with this stroke. Now, the angle of this stroke is what's gonna give us the letter spacing. So I can do it more steep like this, or it could be more slanted like this, okay? Now, let's say it applied. I can go ahead and do, again, my word high, and I have my letters drawn separately, and now I'm gonna join my H with my I with the same angle that I did at the beginning, and I repeat that angle. There. I can go ahead and let's say I'm gonna write high. So the same angle here. I'm gonna use colors with this so that you can see what I'm doing. This line is the one that joins all our letters and it respects the same angle, and that's how we control the letter spacing. Now, if we modify this angle, we're gonna get words that are narrower or wider, okay? Now, there are 3 different angles that I would suggest that you play around with: 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and 55 degrees, okay? So let's play with the same word and see how it would vary. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of examples, so you can go ahead and suggest which words you would like me to write so that you can write along with me and I don't write 1,000 times hello. So go ahead and write down your suggestions. Okay, let's write Designhill. Awesome. So I'm gonna need more space. I'm not gonna be able to fit so many in this tiny paper. So I'm just gonna do it 1 centimeter apart. All my lines. Okay. And I'm gonna try to do straight lines here, guys. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and write down the word. So this is my baseline. I'm gonna draw a star. This is my X height, my descender height, and my ascender height. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, I didn't start in my baseline. I'm gonna go ahead and write the word without joining the letters, okay? It's barely gonna fit, but we made it. Okay, so you see, if I do the same angle in all between all my letters, then I'm gonna make sure that they're gonna be equally spaced out from each other, okay? Now I'm just gonna go and draw on top of this because it looks very weird this way. Now let's play around with it and do it closer to each other. The same angle, but now I'm gonna do this angle, the same letter angle slant, and I'm gonna do this angle for the joining piece, okay? So you see how if I respect the same angle in all my letters, well, here I'm gonna have a trouble with the G and the H, but please don't mind the mess. See how the same angle is being used among all of the letters, okay? And now I can do it even further apart. I'm gonna have to start right here in order to have enough room. Okay, so you see how just modifying the union between each letter, I can get different look and feel of the word. So it can be on a more regular distance, be more narrow or be wider, okay? So we have variation number 3, okay? Letter spacing, okay? So now we have A, B, and C. So keep your notes. And we have 2 more to go before we start doing all our combinations or mix and match and see what we can get from all of our results, okay? Now, the third is letter contrast. And this is where we enter the term of faux calligraphy, because what we're doing is that we're imitating the result of the brush calligraphy. So I told you when you signed up and you saw on the event post that you needed a pencil and a ruler and an eraser and enough paper to do all your annotations, then that it was optional for you to have a brush pen. So if you have one and you have used one, then you know that depending on the pressure that you apply on your strokes, you're gonna get thin strokes when you go up and thin strokes when you go down. Okay, so thin up strokes, thick down strokes. Okay, so if I go ahead and I draw on top of my word that I wrote earlier before, then you see that if I respect the direction of each of the strokes, then I go thin up, thick down, thin up, thick down. Okay, thin, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick. Now, if you don't have a brush pen, then you can do this with your pen. And what you're gonna do is that you're gonna try to imitate what you're seeing here right now. So I'm gonna mark with an X all of the strokes that are supposed to be thick. We have more questions. Lenny is asking, what would I recommend to learn to draw alphabets like serif and slab, because it's really difficult for me? Well, that's a whole different world. I love doing Roman style letters. And what I would definitely do is to just try to copy the like download a font like Times New Roman. You can just print it out, the entire alphabet, and try to copy it from there. And then you'll learn, you know, where the strokes, all the serifs go, because that is gonna be exactly the same regardless if it's a serif or a slab serif. The place where the serifs go, it's the same. So first you need to memorize that. Then if it's a serif style type, then you would have to apply as well what I'm doing right now. Up strokes go thin, down strokes are thick. Only that you're not gonna join the letters because you're not doing script calligraphy, but the science is basically the same. Lenny, if I see that your last name is Gonzalez, so if you do speak Spanish, you can look me up on my Instagram page, and there are some Instagram live classes that are saved in my profile where I actually teach how to draw Roman style letters, and that's where you learn to do serif and slab serif typefaces. So I hope that you find some information useful there. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the link right now of my Instagram account. And and you can look me up and find more free content there to enhance your lettering techniques, okay? Okay, now let's see. So we were saying that we're gonna go ahead and replicate what we're seeing here, but here. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark with an X where the thick strokes go. So up thin, down thick. So thick, 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 and thick. So if I go ahead and just color it, see that when I'm drawing, I'm coloring, I'm modifying in a conscious way exactly where I want the thick strokes to go. And what I'm doing is that I'm replicating what the brush pen gives me as a result, okay? So if then I do it nicely and I round up all the corners, what I have as a result is a word that looks very much the same as the one as I had on top. So this is faux calligraphy, okay? Because maybe you've heard the term faux leather. So it's exactly the same. It's like a look-alike, but it's not. But I'm doing everything to to make you believe that it was made with the same tool, with the same technique, with the same finishing touches as the one on top, okay? So this is faux calligraphy. And this is calligraphy. Here, I didn't go twice on the same stroke. It was just the result of the tool that I was using, okay? So you can go ahead and do faux lettering on faux calligraphy on basically any calligraphy style, because what you're doing with lettering is that you're drawing. So this way you can go ahead and if you don't have any specific tool, you can get exactly the same results. So we're halfway through our workshop. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back and see the last two concepts, and then we're just gonna go ahead and apply and mix them all around to see how many different styles you can get from this. So Robin, whenever you're ready.
Yes. All right, guys. I hope you are enjoying this session. It's time for a short break. Before we move forward, I would like to give a quick shout out to Design Hill, world's leading creative marketplace, for organizing this event. Stay tuned, and we will be right back to learn more from Catalina. All right, guys, we are back again, and let's continue with the session. Catalina, over to you.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, so now we were talking about the letter contrast. So when you modify the thickness of your strokes, you can have high contrast or low contrast. The contrast is the difference between the thin and the thick, okay? So when you add up the thickness on each of your strokes, then you can try it for it to be the same thickness. So you would have low contrast, or you can intentionally try to make very thin strokes and thick strokes and make it a high contrast letter, okay? So when we apply this to the words that we were practicing before, I'm just gonna go ahead and see where all my notes went. Okay, here, then you can go ahead and say, okay, so this one, I'm gonna go ahead and do it low contrast. So one way to do it is just to color it this way, like don't try to make it even, okay? Just try to make it the same thickness, okay? Then you're gonna fix it. Try to respect the direction of each of the strokes that you did when you were writing, okay? Because this way you're gonna still keep the rhythm of your handwriting, okay? If you start adding thickness, following a different direction, then maybe you'll mess one connection, or you're gonna make a stroke that's not gonna look as even as it looked when you first wrote it, okay? So now that I colored it, now I can just go ahead and fix the contour of my letters. So even though it was kind of sloppy at first, see that when you go ahead and draw the outline, then it looks very even, okay? So sometimes I believe that the sloppiness helps us so that we don't pay attention to the edges per se, but just pay attention to the direction of the strokes, and then you're gonna be able to even it all out, okay? So this would be a low contrast, okay? Now let's have a high contrast. It can be, remember that the ones that go down are the ones that are thick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place our reference here to see which are the ones that I'm gonna go ahead and thicken. So I'm gonna go ahead and do here my thick strokes. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and repeat exactly the same contrast I have on this example, but on this one. But here we have one of another variation, because the letter contrast was variation number 4, or letter D. So, and here we have the variation of the letter height, okay? So this is gonna be A plus D, okay? So we have another variation, and see how we have completely different results just by modifying the letter height. Same contrast, but two heights give me two different results, okay? So I hope that you're getting the hang of it, of the combinations of the different concepts. We're gonna go ahead and see through it in the following examples. We have another question. What are the letters in the right margin after you draw the guidelines? In which right margin? Oh, here, these letters. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm saying right now. So I'm doing, so each of the rules, I identified them with a letter. So letter height is letter A, and we talked about letter in contrast, and it's letter D. So here I'm combining two of the concepts in order to get a specific result. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna go ahead and practice more in detail in the upcoming examples. So the last concept that we're gonna see is letter weight, okay? So now, when we go ahead and add the contrast, it can be high contrast or low contrast, the letter can be light weighted or heavy weighted. Okay, so it depends on how much thickness you decide to add depending on the contrast that you select. Okay, so for example, on these cases, they are high contrast but are light weighted. But I can immediately turn this into a heavy weighted letter, still having high contrast, but making it very thick. Maybe I'm gonna have to make some room for the letter E. So right now, this letter is a heavy letter with a high contrast. Okay, so high contrast, lightweight letter, high contrast, heavyweight letter. Okay, so you can have different results with different variations on the thickness of the strokes. Okay, now, so this is the moment where we start mixing, matching the different rules that we learned today. So we have 5 different rules. I'm gonna go ahead and place them here. And it's letter weight, letter height, it's letter number A, letter slant, letter number B, letter spacing, letter number C, letter contrast would be our letter D, and letter weight, letter E. Okay, so we're gonna combine in different ways these 5 variations, and this way we're gonna be able to achieve an infinite amount of results with the same base modern calligraphy alphabet. Okay, so go ahead and suggest words I can write down, and what I'm gonna do is do different combinations. Okay, so let's I can write your names, I can write your countries, or in case you want a specific word, then you can go ahead and suggest it. So I read you guys in the chat. Keisha is writing something. What do you want me to? Okay, Irish wants me to write Irish. Okay, so Irish. I'm gonna go ahead and do several combinations here. So option number 1, I'm gonna go ahead and do a variation of the letter height. Okay, so let's see here. It's right in the middle. And here it's gonna be lower. The X height is gonna be lower. Okay, so I'm doing combination A, variation A, I mean. Now, I can either, let's say, go ahead and modify the slant. And the slant would be variation B, okay? And so I'm gonna go ahead and write Irish. And so here I'm gonna do it with a 20-degree angle. Okay, and here it's gonna be even more slanted. So here it's, you see, 20-degree angle. And here, let's say I'm just gonna do a 45-degree angle. Go ahead and do your guidelines, guys. So see here how we have 2 different variations. We haven't even added any thickness, but we have option number one, straighter letters, higher X height, even though the ascender height and cap height is exactly the same in both examples, but we have a different feeling just by moving the X height. Here it's closer to the baseline, here is right in the middle, okay? Now, also, option number two, it's even more slanted than the first one, so it gives me a different result. And we can add up even a third variation. Let's say here, I'm gonna modify the letter contrast. So it would be letter number D, okay? So here it's gonna be high contrast. So I'm gonna go ahead and only thicken the down strokes. Okay, but let's say here, I'm gonna go ahead and do a low contrast. So here I'm gonna go ahead and thicken everything. Remember, sloppy is fine, because then I'm just gonna go ahead and color it. And this gives me a more, an easier way to control how even my strokes are, okay? And then I'm just gonna go ahead and draw the contour. Remember to respect the direction of your strokes when you're doing the contour. Okay, so see here how we have completely different results with the same word doing the different variations, okay? And obviously this is gonna look nicer if we go ahead and color it without all of my guidelines and my sketching guides. Okay. We have another question. Let's see. No, I think we answered them all. Okay, so you see how it makes sense now, how we have the different modifications on my construction of the word. It's all about planning. So you have all these rules that you have to decide which one you're gonna apply, okay? So that's why I'm using the letters. So each of them stand for one of the rules that I'm deciding to use and implement on each of my words. I'm gonna go ahead and do another example and use another of the words that I have here suggested. Oh, I'm glad that you like it, Irish. Okay, so we have Vanessa. Okay, let's go ahead and do Vanessa. So again, I'm using the same distance from the baseline and the ascender and caps height, but this can be obviously another variation that you can work, but I'm just, being proficient with the time and the space that I have and using the height of my ruler, but you can go ahead and modify this, okay? Now, I'm gonna keep exactly the same distance for the X height in this case. I'm not gonna modify it, okay? And what I'm gonna modify is the letter spacing. So I'm gonna use number C, and then I'm gonna go ahead and change the weight, okay? And see what comes out of this, okay? So I'm gonna keep the same height, the same slant, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and write the word same height, same slant, but here I have this angle for letter spacing, and here I'm gonna do it closer to each other. Okay, so here I have this angle, and here I have this angle. Okay, see the difference? And see how right now they look completely different. Now I have the variation of the letter spacing, and now I'm gonna go ahead and change for the letter weight. That would be letter E. So here it can be heavy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a very thick. When I have more space between the letters, then it's easier for me to go ahead and add the thickness for this heavy, heavy style script letters. So again, go ahead and plan ahead before you write your word, because you need to take into consideration those variations, okay? And here, since I don't have that much space, I'm gonna go ahead and do a light weighted. So let's see. I have a couple of questions. Let me see if I have time to answer them both. When you can have all this art done through various software, then what is the importance of learning this art and do it manually? Because at the end of the day, thank you for your very, very important questions, Akhtar. The first thing is that you need to, I mean, the machine, either your iPad, your computer, whatever software that you're using, it's only a means to the end, to an end, because it only gives you the tools to have a more precise finishing on your designs. But you need to understand this by hand. You need to first understand this in order to then digitalize it. You need to actually give the computer the instructions, or tell, you know, when you're moving your mouse around or on your tablet or whatever tool that you're using, you need to actually know where to go, if they're up, either down, either thick, high, low, anyways. So you need to understand it in an analog way. The I mean the all the electronic tools are just a complement to what you're doing, and you can tell when it has a solid base at the beginning, that there was actually a hand-drawn sketch, because you can tell the structure, you know, how the, because at the end with your iPad, what you're doing is you're replicating. You're doing exactly what I was doing with the Faux Calligraphy. You're replicating what you can do by hand. Okay, so definitely one depends of the other. So please never try to skip the process of learning it by hand. Okay, and Lenny asked, please repeat the difference between high contrast and low contrast. Okay, so the contrast of a letter is the variations, the difference between thick and thick, thin and thick. Okay, so when the strokes are a very similar thickness, then it's a low contrast. So here, all strokes are very similar. They have the same thickness. They're very even. And here, there's a clear difference between what's thick and what's thin. Now, it can be even thicker than this thick that I decided, or that it was just like, well, for example, here, this one, it's heavier than this one. Okay, so it's still lightweighted, but it's heavier than this word, but it's lighter than this word. Now, these are still, you can see a thin point and a thick point, so still you have contrast. Okay. So we're almost up on our time for today's class, so I think I have time for one more question in case you guys have one, but I hope that it was all clear and that you learned enough tools today to go ahead and play around with the different combinations. So here it was letter C, letter spacing, and letter weight. So we have the same height, we have the same slant, we only varied the spacing. So here we have this angle and here we have this angle. See? So that makes the letters closer together and here are further apart from each other. Okay? So this is what you have to take into account when you write your letters. Go ahead and plan ahead of time. Decide which of the rules you're gonna use and just, you know, mess it up. That's the only way that you're gonna learn. Practice, practice, practice. Try to write down words. That's gonna be even more helpful than writing letters by themselves. Because see, when you write down words is when you can actually clearly see the combinations and applications of the rules. So I hope that if you do implement what you learned today and then you post it on your social media, please tag me and I would love to see your results. Follow me on Instagram, Daniel, there. My webpage and everything is in Spanish, so if you do speak Spanish, then they're gonna find a lot of helpful resources, free resources there, classes and content. And I'll be more than happy to follow up on your work from this workshop today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Designhill, for the invitation. It was my pleasure to be here on stage again with all of you.
All right, all right. So, guys, this brings us to the end of this wonderful workshop with Catalina. This was indeed a value-packed session. Although there is a lot more that we could have learned, unfortunately, we are limited by time here. I hope you guys loved this session. Once again, I would like to thank you, Catalina, for taking out time to be a part of this event. And this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you. So don't forget to check out our events page. And to watch this session and other such wonderful sessions, subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is in the chat section. For all the designers and artists who are listening to this and wish to be a part of thriving design community, visit designhill.com. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined us here today. Take care, guys, and stay safe.